Okay, so this is episode 1. This is While We Were High. And if you are listening, you need to be over the age of 21, 18 if you're in Jamaica. But welcome to While We Were High. Our podcast features the untold stories of individuals on their personal and professional journeys, along with the not so popular aspects of already well-known stories of folks you may have already known. The podcast is for listeners over the age of 21. I'm Anika, I'm your main host, and this is the debut. So if you're tuned in, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whichever podcast platform you prefer, make sure you hit the button to subscribe and follow. Let's get that out of the way. So you probably thought, based on the title, that this podcast was all about weed, aka Mary Jane, aka marijuana, but it's not. We're here to tell you stories. There's a bit of cannabis involved because you see the clincher. This story is not about cannabis, it's a part of the story. It's a character. And myself, co-hosts, and each of our guests have some sort of relationship in some manner with cannabis. But the story itself is what we want you to pay attention to. So as we get into this, you'll learn more about cannabis as well, but really what we want you to take away is the lessons that you can learn from each of our guests. So I want to introduce our co-host today. This is Natalie. This powerhouse of a woman right here is an operations goddess, and it's her birthday today. Happy birthday! So Natalie, introduce yourself, please.
I would like to say I'm an experienced cultivator.
Ah, okay.
Yes, and so everything I do, I try to make it an experience for the persons that are going to be participating. Whether I am at a birth as a doula, whether I am curating an experience, a production, whether I'm on a podcast, it's gonna be an experience. And so I'm just one of those people that you come to them yard, you're gonna just feel welcome, and that's what I try to bring to everything. So I'm here to make people feel welcome.
Nice. Okay, so today, our topic, what's our topic again, Natalie?
I read my notes, and it's divine feminine power.
Yeah, it's about reclaiming that feminine power.
Okay.
It can be a bit heavy, but if there are men listening, please don't stop listening. We want you to actually learn something from this.
Because the update that we gave Greg, our sound guy, was that we all have divine feminine and masculine in our bodies. And actually what we partake of when we smoke ganja is a feminine plant. So we have to be mindful of that.
It's
energy.
a feminine plant?
Yes.
That's
where the flowers come from.
Oh, that does make sense.
It's actually just the plant itself.
You have to introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm Shane Morris. I used to do digital media marketing for a bunch of different people and brands. But just to interject, the plant itself is not feminine, so to speak. We consume the female, we desire the female of it. The male plant is actually quite beneficial and not really spoken about as much because it is the ones that seed up the female plants.
Oh.
And usually when people like these buds, they don't want any seeds in them, so they tend to root the men out of the farm.
We want some seeds
However,
for our backyard,
the roots of the male plants, the leaves, even the seeds that they are producing are actually quite nutritious and high in certain vitamins and minerals.
Thanks, Shane. And I was going to get there.
He did kind of steal your thunder a little bit.
It.
Okay.
No, but it's perfect. It's
Okay.
perfect balance, right? So yeah, it adds up the divine masculine, and yeah, that's part of even acknowledging this feminine power, that you have both, and it's not to acknowledge one more than the other.
Okay.
But to seek that balance.
Well, speaking of that, so we're gonna introduce our guests. So our present recorded session, we have Dr. Karen Carpenter in the house. Welcome, Karen. We're going to drop the doctor now. But so Karen is a Florida board certified clinical sexologist and psychologist. She's the director of the Caribbean Sexuality Research Group, Sexology Clinic. This is a lot to read. She is the editor of Interweaving Tapestries of Sexuality and Culture, author of Love and Sex, and she's also the host of Love and Sex for radio and television. And there are a lot more words in here that are really long for me to read. But Karen is our first guest. Thank you, Karen, for joining us on our first episode.
Thanks for having me, Annika. And that was a really honest reading.
It's a lot of long words
And they're
in
long.
there.
They're long.
And I swear I haven't started smoking yet.
No, they're long.
Okay, so while I start lighting up over here, Karen, give me 3 words to describe yourself.
Gosh. 3 words. Courage, honesty, integrity.
Nice. Okay. Shane, you're in the house too. 3 words. We have a lot of people at the table right now, or passive audience.
Passive
Studio
audience.
studio audience.
Studio audience.
Passive.
I know you just keep more.
3 words.
Yeah, man. Loyal. Patient.
Oh, okay. Passive was the first one.
first word.
Oh, thank you. Okay. This is, and introduce yourself.
Oh, MJ over here. I am production manager.
Yeah.
All right. So my 3 words, I would go with quirky, a little bit crazy, and ambivert. I'm gonna just go with those 3. Yeah.
Okay. Adam in the house.
Yes,
From Bloom Cafe. Shout out to Bloom.
up in the hills.
Yes.
Blue mountains. Wicked place. Wait to see.
3 words.
3 words. I don't really like to put my words to myself because it's better you learn about it, you know. So I
You
mean,
taking
I agree
that
with
level.
everything that everybody has said.
Yeah.
Those are positive things, but words are dangerous because you have to. If you put them out there, it's like then
You have to live up
you
to
know
their
their expectations.
Oh.
So you have to really
Okay.
be careful with words you use.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's on a conscious level.
Okay. Respect that. Natalie, you wanted the 3 words or no?
Sure. Magic, round, and pleasant.
Okay. I will go with heart-led. That's kind of like a hyphenated word. Yeah.
Is it actually a word?
I'm gonna make it up.
Alright, cool. Fair
Every
enough.
word starts.
Scorpio is 2nd word, and passionate. I'll work with that.
Yeah, scorpions too.
Yes.
Stingy.
Yeah.
Stingy.
Okay. All right. So we're going straight into the interview. So Karen. So our topic is reclaiming feminine power. What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm thinking primarily in relationship. Yes.
Okay.
And because of the work I do, often what people are coming to me for is to sort out their relationships, whether with their partners, with themselves, with their work, with their life goals. I have a number of people who come to me because they decide they want to change path, they want to change direction, and they're both scared and unsure. They don't know which road to take. And as a therapist, it's never your job to tell people what to do, but it is your job to be that sticking wall where if they throw enough stuff at it, something will stick, and then they can begin to work on that thing that makes them uniquely themselves. You know, so yeah.
In terms of these shifting of paths or new directions, do you feel that along that journey people have given away their power, as it were?
I think being in your power, whatever that power is, you say you're heart-led. And if that is where your power derives from, it is going to be a little bit scary to lead with your heart, because everything has consequences.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Right. So whether you're heart-led, head-led, or led by other influences, whatever you define yourself as you just said about not defining yourself, once you define yourself, you're going to have to live up to that. And that's where integrity comes from. Integrity is not about what people think of you. Integrity is whether or not you're following your path.
Exactly.
And the things you think about yourself. So if you say you're heart-led and you don't live up to that, then you've let yourself down.
Right.
And that's where your integrity falters. So it takes a lot of courage to face yourself no matter what your mission is. So yes, I think it requires a lot of hand-holding, and sometimes when you're on a tightrope, you need to know somebody's there with a net. And I think therapy provides that net. It's not going to stop you from falling.
Right.
But it's going to catch you if you fall. And that's a very different thing.
So I'm gonna just put it out there. So Karen's my therapist. I'm just putting it out there. Full disclosure.
Yes, for a free session.
But I would like to come back to that thought of therapy and not reclaiming yet, but as in coming back to that topic of therapy and how it can even help you to find your way to that definition of what power is.
Absolutely. And a lot of times we're afraid of our definitions of self. We're so afraid of seeing ourselves as who we imagine ourselves to be. I mean, it's said that, the greatest fear is not fear itself, but that we might be just wonderfully made and are afraid to face that. Because it means responsibility. It means taking self-responsibility. So I think it's very scary when someone sets out on that path. And I've had a lot of people who have done remarkably well on that path, where they've claimed their power, feminine or otherwise, and they've moved into that power. And I've seen them blossom, and I think that's why we do therapy, because the person takes control for themselves. And they can take off the training wheels, and they don't need the net anymore, and they can cross that divide with the pole without any help, and you can just be there as a cheering team going, go girl.
Adam wants to say something. What you saying over there?
Yeah, just contributing a lyric to a song that I'm remembering.
Which
It
is?
says, the lyric says, before you know me, you better know self.
Yeah.
Socrates said, know thyself.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
It's
basic.
in the Matrix too.
It's the basic. I mean, any good legend starts with knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Any epic journey ends with knowing yourself. The
Notes
reason
to
you
people
take the
who want to
journey.
write a book, a novel.
But tell me a little bit more about this self. I mean, for example, I am very loose study of things, right? So recently, what has become one of my favorite texts is Bhagavad Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
And just in terms of how the self, the self is not the personality or the emotions or anything like that, but a higher attribute of you.
The self is a composite.
Right.
So there are different selves that come together. For instance, that's why a therapist can't tell you what to do. When someone comes to me and they're trying to find their path, one of the things that and we'll let secrets out today, I mean, one of the things I encourage them to do is to find their word. Find your word, find your metaphor. You asked us for 3 words to describe ourselves. And I've had people search for months before a word hit them. I remember one lady in particular, her word was a wonderful word, and when she found the word, it was because another woman walked up to her and embodied that word, and she said, I have my word. This is it. When I saw you, I thought, and I won't give away the story.
Right, yeah.
And that was what she came back with the next week. She said, this is who I want to be. Not that person, but this word. How do I become that in my life so that I can share that with other people? And it was a lovely journey. It was a wonderful journey.
You know, when you started talking earlier, and we were talking about feminine power and so forth, I then thought to myself, do you find that well, it's kind of a redundant question of sorts, but do you find that men come to you in some aspect of trying to reclaim that feminine power, as it were?
Not so much in terms, because again, you have to kind of find out where ground zero is for each person. And for each person, ground zero is a different place. My ground zero has neither masculine nor feminine in it. My ground zero has both and neither.
Okay.
So I'm not really conceiving of the person in terms of a masculine or feminine. And they rarely express that they want to find that masculine or feminine. But what I find men particularly come for is to be listened to. What men come for is to talk without judgment. To spend an hour talking about themselves without being interrupted.
Wow.
And 9 out of 10 people who say to me, of their male partners, he's not going to talk, he never speaks, he doesn't say anything, that's the man that will spend 2 hours in my office.
Wow.
He'll go over the hour and I'll say we're over the hour and he'll say it's okay. And he will talk for 2 hours straight. And I'm only there to acknowledge that he's there and that he's present and that his story is valid. Because the only time they get to talk without, one, there's no gossip.
Yeah.
There's no carrying back of the information. It's unethical for me to repeat what they've said in front of me.
Right.
Whatever they say here stays here. And there is no judgment. There's nothing you can tell me that will shock me. Absolutely nothing. Because that's what the training does for you.
Yeah.
You're shock proof by the time you come to therapy. We exercise unconditional positive regard. So it doesn't matter what you have to tell me. It's your story, it's not my story. And I have to allow you the space to be able to experience that story in the way you see it. And then we can talk about what you want to do with it.
So I have heard that, therapists have their own therapist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, you got to have somebody. Everybody needs to have somebody for that unconditional positive regard.
Absolutely.
So I know that, for as a therapist, you're not typically going to be sharing much from your perspective. But I would appreciate you allowing yourself to be a little vulnerable with me, because the tables have turned. But so what has been your story?
In terms of?
Have you had a moment where you needed to find your way back on your path, as it were, as you had put it, in terms of reclaiming that power, as it were?
I think I've been one of these unfortunate people who have purpose. And I say unfortunate because if you have purpose, you have direction. If you have direction, then you can be straight as an arrow. So I've been one of these people who from very early in my life, I understood that I was here for a purpose. So I've always looked for purpose. I don't live a life without purpose. I live very consciously. I have my moments when obviously things become bigger than me. Loss of a parent, death of a mother, we both shared that. A loss of a partner perhaps, or something of that nature, where it has been a dramatic loss. Regrettably, I'm prepared for those losses because I understand that this person is not my purpose. My purpose includes them along the way, but they are not my purpose. I am not on this earth to please them.
Please to repeat it for the people in the back. What you just said a while ago, this person is not my purpose.
They're not my purpose.
I'm writing that.
And I've been very
that's
clear about
content.
that since I was very young, that we will encounter each other. And I've been very, very fortunate. I've had wonderful relationships, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stay there. Because I'm very clear that I have a purpose. So I'm here to fulfill my purpose. And I'm hoping that people who are fulfilling theirs who enter my life can take the journey with me, alongside me. Carry one of the bags, I'll carry one of yours. But I am not here to be your crutch, and you are not here to be my crutch. My self-determination is quite separate of who you are. When I wake up in the morning, it's just me. Just me.
Yeah, man, that's deep.
I see people catching spirit. Like feeling the spirit over here.
We need the
Tambourine. I think we're gonna have tambourines for the next episode. We have tambourines. Okay, so in terms of purpose, and actually, you know what? Something just occurred to me. We didn't ask you what your relationship is like with cannabis. What's your story with cannabis?
Okay, well, let me do it in a backwards way.
Okay.
Yes? I think it's extremely stupid of parents, for instance, when they tell kids about sex. And they say, don't do this and don't do that and don't do the other. But they've only had sex 3 times because they have 3 children.
Whoa!
You were going to tell me about sex, you should be an expert.
Snap.
Damn. Okay, yeah.
So I never hid it from my kids. Well, my children, poor souls, there's very little less hidden from them. I don't know what will be hidden from them at this point in time because they're grown adults. But I've never hidden things from them. I can't advise you about cannabis use if I proclaim that I've never used it, and that would be a lie. That would be an out and out lie. So why would I even begin to tell you that? No. I think at the time when we would smoke as teenagers and as young adults, it probably was more about what my brother here says, higher consciousness. You'd buy 145 at a record store. You people don't have record stores, yeah? You'd go to, no.
That's a new record store.
Literal record store. You would go in a booth and listen to the music, even though you heard it on the radio 10,000 times. The one like a 45, you go in the booth and listen to the one like a 45. Then you'd buy the 45 and each of you buy one. And then you go back to the house. And my house was one of those gathering places because my mom was very cool. So all my friends used to come over and gather there. And we put on the 45s one by one. You smoke and you meditate, as I say, meditate. And there's a reason you're holding for like 6 hours. So that's my experience of how I came into any kind of cannabis use. It was about higher mind. It was about expression. It was about exploring your headspace with other people who are intelligent and who could in fact enter into a different kind of reasoning with you. It was never about, get high and get drunk and get In fact, we rarely drank if we were smoking. Those kind of things were taboo.
What
I'd
you
like
saying?
to say something.
Yeah.
You know, I was struggling to find a word in the moment and saying that they're hard to find. You know? But with cannabis, meditation is always
meditation
part of it. you know? So yes,
Yeah.
you can agree.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, since we're just sharing here, I am now off of Wellbutrin, and everybody who knows me knows I'm very open with my own personal struggles with depression, which Karen has helped me to find my path, as it were. Yes, but I have found that I can manage my symptoms and my issues with the use of marijuana, as well as in combination with CBD oil. So I've found a nice balance and a nice groove, as it were. So that's my relationship.
As I got older, CBD was helpful with sleep problems because I do have sleep problems. What I have is an overactive brain. So it doesn't matter how tired I am, if my brain is on, I cannot sleep. And I can go 48 hours without sleeping and be functional.
Wow.
So that's challenging when you actually need to
session.
sleep.
She was with me and she didn't sleep the night before. That's when my brain went all of a sudden. Sorry.
That's a real thing. I may need to talk to you.
It's true. I've always struggled with sleep. My dad used to say that sleep was wasted. So he and I would stay up, for instance, the entire night talking philosophy, talking about music, playing music, him having a scotch and just reasoning. So that's been a big part of my life. You know, people, adults who want to actually open your mind and share stuff with you. So yeah, we'd go for the whole night without sleeping and we'd be cool. But what was important was your brain switched on.
Yeah. Okay, so let's bring it back because we totally strayed for a second. But I want to bring it back to the topic of, if we were to change the name of the topic from reclaiming your power, because we kind of
I actually
shifted.
don't think that that's a bad topic. I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you still want to explore that, I'm happy to.
No,
explore
as in
that.
we're exploring it, but where you had changed the word from power to it changed from power to path to purpose.
The purpose.
All P words.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
There are other P words that we have used this in.
Oh, like.
Yeah, let's go.
The whole essence of the feminine power.
Yeah.
The pussy power.
Well, that
Boom,
wasn't the
boom.
one I was thinking
That
of,
wasn't what.
actually.
No.
She knows I wasn't thinking
Yeah.
of.
No, I wasn't.
But you know,
What?
where I went.
Penile, phallic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying, yes.
But in terms of relationships,
Yeah.
what do you find are the most typical power struggles in relationships?
Oh, there are a lot of them. And there are at least 5 red flags that we look for in relationships. I don't want to dwell on red flags because there are other things that are positive about relationships. But certainly sex and money. Everybody knows those two. In-laws is one of them. How we bring up children is another one, and how the chores are shared. Those are the 5 red flags in a relationship, and they're likely to set off a relationship. When people get to that power struggle point in the relationship, when they're over the honeymoon phase, and oh my God, you're so beautiful, and I get up and I sing every morning, and you know, birds fly out of their mouth and all that. When that's over, then we start with the power struggles, because now we see each other for who we are, and we have to decide on these things. But I think, to go back to your original thought of reclaiming feminine power, I would like to touch on that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because recently I've been teaching my classes about this. Because what I have is adult students in front of me who are going out into the world to make a difference. And one of the challenges we have, and I'll say as a unabashed feminist, as a liberal feminist who believes that we need men, that men are our brothers, they're not our enemies, and that we need to empower men in order to empower women.
Right.
I have a son, you have a son. I could hardly think that men are the enemy. We produce them. They come from us.
Right.
So it's, in my view, ridiculous to see them as something other than us. But what happens a lot in relationships, and Eugene Barito speaks about this, another Caribbean feminist, when she speaks about heterosexual relationships, man-woman relationships. Women enter into these relationships with a lot of power. And the erotic is part of what entices the man into the relationship with the woman. She uses her erotic feminism and her erotic power to enter into the relationship. And the minute it becomes domestic, she drops that. And she gives up what we call her erotic power for love power. She wants to swap out that erotic power for the thing that becomes maternal and caregiving and humdrum, and that wasn't where the game started in the first place. So I think it's quite a pity that women think they can't mother and wife and do all the other things that they're doing within relationships with men while still being erotic. It seems that it's Madonna or whore. Yeah, and it's neither, it's both.
It's 2 sides of the same coin.
It's very unsexy to mother a man. If he wanted his mother, he would have been with her.
Right.
It's very unsexy to be fathered by your lover. That we have an incest taboo that forbids that. Psychologically, it's really unsexy. I'd like to encourage women to hold on to their erotic power and to grow in their erotic power in that relationship. It's an opportunity to find out more about your erotic self. It's not an opportunity to put on a house dress and tie up your hair and walk with a bun every day and say, woe is me. So that's one of the things that really irks me in man-woman relationships. Women believe in order to keep the man, I have to give up my power. For him to be a man, I have to be powerless. That's not erotic for men.
No shape, form, or fashion.
So how does a woman then either retain her erotic power in terms of going into a new relationship, or how does she reclaim that erotic power?
Well, first of all, I think she has to start with her erotic power. I think if what you're doing is a belly dance before the relationship cements, then you're never going to be able to keep it. If all you're doing is trying to entrap the man through sexuality, you were never erotic in the first place. So get erotic with yourself.
Okay.
Understand what gives you pleasure, what you enjoy, how you enjoy yourself, so that when you enter into a relationship, it doesn't become a 9-day wonder and then that's it. A lot of women put on these airs and think they have to be the bimbet in order to engage a man. Actually, no. If you're more yourself, he's usually more interested.
Willing to wait.
A bimbo,
A bimbet.
a bimbet, the dolling up, the push-up bra, push-up pants, the eyelashes, the fingernails.
Gotcha.
It's a lot of work. When you take off all of that,
It's a lot
and
of
he
But that's when
sees
you end up
you,
with
then
the house
what?
dress. Because I mean,
Precisely.
after you trap the man,
Because
you can't
you were-
maintain that.
Because your
in the
mentality
home.
was a house dress in the first place. You took a house dress and tied up the top and hooks up the bottom, and you made it into a go-go dancing outfit, but you were never erotic in the first place. What you were was pretending
to be
at the erotic.
Yeah.
You were pretending to be something that you think he wants.
And a man will take that for what him want out there.
For the purpose of it.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, and just move on after that.
But also, Annika, I think that men too demand that of us sometimes, wrongly so, that they demand that women who have children become this Madonna, become this mother they left at home. And I think we have to reject that. I think we have to say to them, that's not going to happen, it's not going to fly. Yeah? So I think we also have to stand up in our own power and say, I'm not your mother.
You sound like you look like you want to say something. What you want to say, Natalie?
No, I'm there with you, and I totally agree, and I feel like you just have to live it. And as you were saying, don't make it a pretense. It has to be a part of your
has to be
routine
part of it.
and regimen. So, as you say, get to know yourself, get to know what you like, do things that get you closer to that embodiment of that eroticism within yourself. So, like,
Well-
take that bath.
Yeah.
Take
We're
your
all
time.
looking for someone to come along and rescue us.
Right.
Are you lost? I don't understand why women believe that they're lost. You're looking for your father. If you're looking for somebody to come and rescue you, you're looking for daddy all over again.
So
Get
resolve
off
that
it.
first.
Get off
Right.
it. Yeah?
You know? So
Women are perfectly strong in their own right. They don't need anybody to come and rescue them.
Amen, sister.
Except maybe a therapist. Hello.
No, therapist don't rescue.
No rescuing.
Why-
It
why-
feels like it.
While we're laughing, Shane, please, can you share the cherry pie?
Yes.
Shane's over here smoking
So we
cherry
have cherry
pie.
pie from Sata. If you need the link, you just call me.
No, just DM. Just slide into those DMs over here.
I will link.
Okay, so let's talk about the workplace for a second. In terms of those kind of power struggles that happen within the workplace. Because we're actually coming up to our second segment, which one of the purposes of While We Were High is that we want to bring conversations involving cannabis into different environments. One of them being business. So in terms of the workplace, what are some of the power struggles that you have heard about in your sessions?
Well, it's interesting that you had asked me that, Annika, because when you contacted me, we've just come back from a retreat in Florida. We just did a Time for Me retreat for women. And this retreat was for business women. These are all women who are at the top of their game.
Nice.
We're talking about engineers, we're talking about CEOs, folks at the top of their game flew into Margaritaville, and we spent the weekend on Time for Me. And part of that conversation was about when the workplace overpowers you, overcomes you, and swallows you whole, and there's nothing left. What you have left is what you go home with, which is the dregs, and therefore you have no use to your family, to your loved ones, etc. I think the International Women's Day motto for this year has been a brilliant one. It's balance for better.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that women need to reclaim at this point is balance. This notion that if you are a CEO, you have to be killing it, 17 out of 24 hours at the office, is not balanced.
That earlier.
It's not
Like, who
balanced.
sleeps?
Yeah. It used to be, but it used to be, well, if you're a dog, you don't have to bark. Everybody know you're a dog.
Right.
If you're alpha, you're alpha. Why are you making yapping? It's always the little dog that can't defend himself and yaps at the gate in her room. The big one back
They open
one
the gates
time.
and they're still there.
They are not even-
Ain't biting.
And that is physically in my house. I have 2 dogs. You come to the gate. The small one
The
is the
small
one
one
that's
has to make all
going
the
to come
noise.
and tear down the
Yeah.
gate and thing.
And as you
The
open it,
big
turn
one
Back once.
doesn't even bark. He
Right.
sits.
And wait.
Oh.
Yeah.
Open the gate if
Yeah.
you're back.
Yeah. I dare you.
Right.
Come in,
So I
but
think
you're not
women, we've taken off the shoulder pads. That was very 80s.
Oh my.
We've taken off, the poofy hairdos and
Uh-huh.
the stiletto heels, and we're being a little bit more sensible in how we approach the workplace.
practical.
But we have to also ask ourselves, if you want it all, what is it gonna cost you? I'm not saying you shouldn't have it all, but it is not a myth. It's not magic. If you want it all, plan your life.
Right.
You want it all, you want the kids. When are they gonna come along? How much of the time are you gonna spend with them? Are they gonna be brought up by the helpers?
Right.
Are you gonna change jobs? Because now we have 4 or 5 careers over a lifetime. What are you gonna be doing when, so that you can strategically place yourself in that position to get that job that you want? But if you don't want to have kids, don't apologize.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
no one to apologize to.
Just own it.
Go for
Yeah.
what you want and learn the difference between aggression and assertiveness. That little dog yapping at your heel, he's aggressive.
I'm gonna write that one down. Learn the difference between aggression and assertiveness. We
Be
are putting that
assertive.
on.
Let your no be no. Let your yes be yes. And let your I'll think about it, can I get back to you, be exactly that.
Yeah.
Don't say yes when you mean no.
Yeah.
There are lots of great ways of saying no.
Yeah.
Learn some of them. Stephen Covey can tell you some of those.
Okay, so we're gonna come to our second segment, and this segment is called Business IQ. So we just touched a little bit on the workplace.
Business IQ, that's a great segue.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So we're just going straight into Business
Yeah,
IQ.
perfection.
So for Business IQ, we feature key insights and tidbits of information from our guests, which you can find on whilewewerehigh.com. You can go there to download the info and read the related blogs. So Karen's contribution to our Business IQ in episode 1 of While We Were High is
Learn to be assertive.
Learn the difference
Learn the
between
difference
Assertion
and aggression. Small
Finger
dogs
snaps.
make more noise. Big dogs bark once.
they don't have to.
They don't
sometimes.
have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So communicate your power by not being that yappy little dog, and make your yes your yes, your no your no, and your can I get back to you on that. Exactly what you said. Your words should be impeccable.
What I found is a lot of women have struggled with no. And,
That's because we
the
don't know
guilt.
how to say no.
Right. And then the guilt that follows thereafter.
And guilt is a useless emotion. It gets you nowhere.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you can get rid of guilt, you can get very far in your life.
Yeah.
I think I must have been 23 when I decided that I would not have guilt anymore.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
That's amazing.
Remorse is a useful attribute
Okay.
because it makes you do recompense for the things that you've done in life.
Okay.
If I'm remorseful,
Yeah.
I'll come to you and I'll make amends. If I'm guilty, I can sit at home fretting and being guilty and doing nothing
and
about
never do
it.
anything about it.
One of them moves into action,
Yeah.
and the other one is just rumination.
Thanks for that.
Guilt is
Yeah, man.
useless,
Yeah.
a waste of time.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Do something about it. Put up or shut up. Quite simply.
Is there anything else that women in the work environment can take away from it?
I tell you something that I learned not from books or from therapeutic measures. Something I learned for myself is that I watched what men were doing and how they got ahead. And I decided I would not take the woman path. That there is a woman path that is a long-serving, do your, obsequience, bow down, just keep being a good girl and some man will promote you. If you use adult words here, I think that's bullshit. The reason the men are getting ahead faster than you is that they're putting into their careers what you won't put into it. You're putting it into some man's career. Get over it. Stop making excuses for yourself. Look at your path, have purpose, set a path. And don't keep making excuses for yourself as to why you didn't get it. You didn't. For me as an academic, you didn't get it because you didn't write. You didn't get it because you didn't put in the time. You didn't get it because you didn't apply for promotion. You didn't get it because you didn't cultivate the kinds of people who would in fact write a great reference for you so that you could get that promotion. Figure out your path, figure out what you want and how to get there. But stop trying to further somebody else's career.
Wow.
We do this all the time. You don't have to be a mother to win. You can win without being a mother.
Is that really though isolated as a female problem? Or I mean, I think
the
it's a
mothering
bigger
is.
problem.
I think the mothering is a
just-
female. Not only do we do it, but it's expected of us.
Yeah.
You know, we get into a boardroom and they look at one of us who's female and say, "Can you get a cup of tea?" No, I can't. And while you're at it, get me one too. Why?
I get asked.
How did your genitals suddenly become more important than mine? For me, that's genital deference. I don't defer to genitals. I'm sorry, that's not my fault that you got a penis. I didn't give it to you.
I get asked quite frequently now. So when is Seth gonna get a little sibling? And I'm like, that's not fitting into my 5-year plan. That's usually my response. And then, depending on who I'm talking to, one of the first responses I get is what? I said, no, it's not in my 5-year plan. I don't see that happening unless it happens in the next 6 months.
How is it their
Don't.
business?
But you have a good
Precisely.
point there.
Precisely.
How is it their
That's a good
business?
point.
Precisely.
People need to stop asking people
We have
that.
a culture of familiarity
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
in this country.
Yeah.
Just like somebody will say, look how you get fat.
That's a you know, like, it's a culture. But even so, we look on even the ethnicities. Mr. Chin is no matter regardless of his name. Brown man,
Yeah.
you know, blacker. You know, we have this kind of thing. I personally, I guess because born and raised here and raised with my granny and them sort of thing there, it just like it's almost like I can't even see it anymore.
Yes. We
Yeah.
become immune to it until we come out of the culture.
Oh yeah, and then we go somewhere else and then it slip, and then somebody else look at us like.
Like, you
That's
want
nice.
I
cultural
think it would be
science?
fun to go around and talk about names people didn't call because I've been talking about me. I've heard.
Well, the funniest thing is we're coming into the final segment here. So I'm gonna wrap this section here because we have 2 other guests who are going to be recorded, or when you listen to this, or listeners, we have Kaysian Wilson Burke, who is an amazing fashion designer. She's going to talk to us about, or talk to you about her story, her own relationship with cannabis, and the fact that she has taken her journey from her uncle's tailor shop all the way to Beyonce. So that's Kaysian's section in your segment, Trailblazers. And then we're going to have a special feature in our segment called Creative High, which is with Moon, singer, songwriter, artist, amazing woman. And she's going to give us a mini performance. So I'm wrapping this section here. Thank you, Karen, for your
my
participation in our first episode. It's been highly informative. The puns are coming out. They're coming out. Yeah. And you can find out more information about Karen on whilewewerehigh.com. You can look for the relevant blog related to this podcast as well. Read it, download the information, and I highly recommend Karen for therapy sessions. In any case, so the final segment that we're moving into together, and we're going to come to what your suggestion was, is called Infusion. So in this section, we tackle hot topics, and we're basically going to do a little bit of a brainstorm to find a solution to it.
Okay.
So Nats, this is your,
Oh, we discussed earlier.
yeah.
Okay, Doc.
Uh-oh.
So, what I learned about because we were talking about feminine power and, you know, where that lies and whatever. So the seat of that feminine power, as you mentioned, you know, is the erotic, which includes the eroticism
Part of it is
plus
our
the physical,
eroticism.
right? And so I was like, well, if we talk about the steaming of vaginas, that seat of the feminine power, you know, that root.
And the steaming for what purpose?
So how I learned about steaming was for menstrual issues with cramps and things like that. And then we talk to our sister and I find out, say, oh, if your granny did use guinea hen with too, and them been soaking in salt water for a long time. And so these aspects of the feminine that have been cultured traditionally, you know, and kept by some, it's now become a fad. So you have spas that have now taken the steaming of the vagina as a spa day treatment session.
Oh yeah.
So you're going to probably do your wax, and then you can do like a peel, and then you know a steam, and some of them all include the flip side now with the bedazzling and all sorts of sitting down there, right? So we wanted to find out how you felt about this hot topic of steaming the vagina.
Look, all indigenous culture comes back to us at some point as a pharmaceutical, as a hype, as a fashion, as a fad, as any of the things that make it modern.
Yeah.
So
And make it
clearly,
money.
and make it, and it's a
Commercial,
commodification,
yeah, it's a commodification
of
it.
culture. It's a commodification of indigenous cure.
Yeah.
I don't think that indigenous peoples were steaming arbitrarily.
Right.
It was, as you say, to ease the period cramp.
Or
To
after
create,
pregnancy,
I was
after
going to say it
birth.
was often done alongside birth.
Right.
So in terms of the birthing process and any damage to the perineum, then that steaming process was to infuse the herbs into the tissue so that there was relief.
And healing.
Yes, healing and relief. And saltwater baths, ever since women have been hospitalized for pregnancy, then you know as a doula that you do your saltwater infusion, and if you make it strong enough, you heal faster because you grow the scab and you get rid of that episiotomy.
Right.
It's also sterilizing because salt sterilizes, so it serves multiple functions. In fact, when we use the term he is worth his salt, we actually mean he's worth a lot of money because salt used to be currency.
Exactly.
So salt is very, very important. So a lot of these things that we're seeing coming into modern culture, I'm not sure it's beneficial to the persons doing it except psychologically, but these are indigenous practices that we need to look at, and lots of people complain about medicalizing of indigenous practice. I think we do need to medicalize it.
I think we need to standardize it.
Which
Maybe
is what
not-
I mean by medical.
Okay, all right, cool.
Which is we need to understand what the properties are of the guinea hen.
Definitely.
We need to understand what
The
strength,
dosages,
what
how
strength we should be
often,
using, etc.
right?
Now, do you think that the greater issue could be a problem with consumerism in today's society versus before? You know, where people aren't really taking the time to really understand what is really around them. They're just listening to what.
I think we have a very
being told.
superficial consumerism.
Yeah.
So if we go this deep as a puddle, we're satisfied. That's how deep we're going. We have so much to occupy us that we've become bored. That's the irony of it. We've never had so much information in our lives. We've never had so much access to information. We've never had so much multiculturalism. We've never had so much Discovery Channel. And yet, we're still skimming the surface on all of these things. So we hear about steaming and it's in some, culture that we exoticize.
Right.
So we skim and move along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We keep skimming. And we'll always be looking for another thrill if we're skimming, because we don't understand the indigenous culture around it.
Right. And that is kind of how my gravitation to ganja grew. Just wanting to understand the plant more and why I'm really using it for what I'm using it for, and how you can use it in different ways. Because as you say, your granny have it and I use it as suck up.
Right.
With
And
the
that's
rum,
what we know.
right? And that's what most Jamaicans know it for.
Absolutely.
You have that little buckle in a grandma cupboard.
You
where you
always have
just
the bottle.
know say she go feed and you feel better the next day.
And then a child with asthma would get it in their tea. They get it in tea, they get a little drop of ganja water, ganja oil, whichever, in the mint tea to ease the breathing, to open the bronchial cavities. And now we're using it for chemotherapy.
Right.
Yes, for years we've been using it after chemo to remove the nausea. So it has many, many properties that we've been using as is, without making it into a pharmaceutical.
Right.
How do we make people more curious? Because I think I remember as a child, and maybe it's the thing that I haven't let go of. And I tell you what happened to me. You see, one of the first time I consciously smoked ganja, I said consciously because the first time I got that spliff, they just kind of draw and pull out. But that first time...
So
Wording.
Okay. I take that.
Yeah, she's over there psychoanalyzing you right now.
I take that. No, but what it was is that I was bombarded with a flood of, I guess it was nostalgia. It was, I remember I was looking in the mirror and I saw myself, but I was remembering seeing myself in the mirror at another time in my life.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And like I was just flooded with all of these memories.
Was it nostalgia or melancholy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually don't know.
Because it
made me feel. It made me feel very happy. That's what it was really. It made me feel very, very happy.
That's good.
And I just remember I couldn't stop smiling.
Yeah.
And then, so I've consistently used ganja from age 30, straight up till 38.
Which we don't advise
And
listeners over the age of 21.
but one of the things is that I've also held on to.
The first high?
I guess it's a part of that, but what I loved about it is that it reminded me how to be curious. Because as a child, I was always outside. I was always just...
I would have said that's part of your nature.
Well, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're naturally curious.
Well, I guess. But then that's the thing is that...
Then as another person to contribute to this theory.
Well, what I want to ask is just like, or what I'm trying to get at is that I think a big part of that skimming culture is that we're not curious. We're not really like we're not really interested in things.
Mindful.
We're interested in like everything.
Yeah.
But like to actually zero down on a particular topic and find the beauty and the layers that lie behind it, and get into that part of it to find that okay, that first bout of curiosity that made you look at it, that ain't nothing.
Well, you see, it's a number of things because we have so many socializers. We have church, we have school, we have home, and a larger society. When learning becomes rote, when learning becomes regurgitation, it kills curiosity. When learning becomes exploratory, when learning becomes discovery, when learning becomes multiple answers to the same question, then we become curious.
Yeah.
Yes.
What you're saying, Adam?
Oh yeah, I just had a feeling, I'll say, while you were sharing your feelings about this. You're saying it makes you curious, and it has helped me find what I love the most, through my years and experiences with it. Maybe just because I've been more curious than average about what I'm interested in certain times. But I don't know, maybe without it I could have found them too, but who would have known, because my experience was how it was. So.
And what was it that you found out?
Well, I farm, I have a relationship with plants and the earth, and I love that the most.
Okay.
And what I found is when I do take the time to connect with plants and connect with earth and understand the herb that I'm smoking or the plants that I've been searching for in carnation that just show up outside my bedroom door, right? And explore that plant in isolation to see how it works with my body, whether when I drink it or I do a vaginal steam or whatever, however I consume that plant. I now tap into the magic of that plant, and when I find the time to spend to do that, and take a mindful approach to it, it eases the stresses of the world. And I'm able to now mirror the magic that I found in this plant into the magic of my life. And as you say, create your routine around your life as opposed to creating your life around work. Shane always says, I am creating a life that work just has to work with that paradigm. And I don't work within work paradigm. So the to me, that's the mindfulness that we don't have in the commercialization of what is now deemed a facial. A facial.
Well, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago it was yoni massages, which come from India. Yes, which I highly recommend for people with or without a yoni.
Once they're done, mindfully and with intention, it achieves the
understanding.
Could you please explain? Well, I pronounce it yoni, but yoni. Sorry.
She's our friend.
No, the weirdest thing was
like
I'm
boring coochie that went just make a job.
The strangest thing was that I met a woman named Yanni, and it was because I kind of had to dissociate my
Yanni.
Ideas of yoni.
So it was a little hard, but in any
It's
case,
a vaginal massage.
Explain it for the listeners.
We're paying tons of money in the United States in these parlors for these yoni massages. Now I don't know how they pronounce it. I suspect they say yoni, but I say yoni because it sounds more compatible with the Hindi language, and I imagine that's how people who speak Hindi pronounce it. And it really is a vaginal massage. As you say, I love the way you bring it to the mindfulness. It's an extremely mindful act because the female vagina is so multifaceted that you can experience multiple sensations within the same organ, from the mons pubis right back to the labia majora, minora, clitoris, etc., the first thirds, etc. There's so many ways to bring yourself to climax within the vaginal space, and the vagina is really just the passage, but there's a lot that can bring you pleasure in that area. So a good yoni massage brings relaxation to the spinal cord, brings pleasure to the various portions of the vaginal surfaces. So you can have multiple orgasms, meaning orgasms stacked on top of each other, as opposed to serial, one after the other. And also, what we call multiple orgasms.
No,
the elevator. What we call multiple is usually serial.
Okay.
Multiple is several, so you can have from your root chakra, otherwise, and going up the chakras, you can have multiple orgasms. And the yoni massage can provide you with all of that. It's also, I think, deeply moving for the man or woman who's performing it on you, because the biofeedback, we call it biofeedback, between the individual receiving it and the individual giving it is so intense that to be able to pleasure someone in this way is also very, very invigorating for you. And here I've seen people use CBD oil for that.
Oh, whoa!
Wait, stop over.
Rewind.
Which kind? Asking for a friend.
We don't want anything inside.
Not asking for a friend.
Cavity. We don't want anything inside the vaginal cavity because the vagina has a friendly environment. It takes care of itself. So we don't want anything inside it. But on the labia, and on the mons pubis and on the perineum, those are all good areas for creating a different sensation.
Y'all are missing the visuals. The wax on, wax off. Visuals are happening over here by Karen.
Gesticulation.
Take notes.
Oh gosh.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes,
for sure.
Well,
I
okay,
take
wow.
it back. The whole yoni thing.
You're
I
there.
take back my earlier statement.
You still never say never.
So what was your earlier
Never say
statement?
I was just thought as like one of those. All right, so the steam I got.
Okay.
The massages, not so much.
Okay.
Now.
Now it all comes together.
and there's, I mean, if you
get
ever
it.
read the actual Kama Sutra, which is over 4,000 years old,
Yes.
in the bookshop, they're very disappointed when my Kama Sutras come in because I only want text. The drawings come from the temples; they're not the Kama Sutra. They're just random illustrations used to sensationalize the Kama Sutra.
Marketing.
Yes, marketing. It's already on temples in
Yeah.
India, so why not use it?
Yeah.
But if you read the Kama Sutra, you will understand how wonderfully we're designed for pleasure.
Yeah.
How amazing our pleasure centers are. And there are other massages as well that are performed within the Kama Sutra. For instance, a massage, it takes in 6 or 7 different scents along the spine, and you work it up from the base of the spine up the body, blending those smells until you get the highest note, which is a citrus. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Do you have like workshops or something?
Well,
Okay, so that's our next thing.
Well, so to our listeners, you can DM us for sources for yoni massages. We know
I
a
think
few
somebody
actually.
was asking, like how we get back to that mindfulness. I think Shane was saying, how we get back there, and I think it is in that. It is in
Exactly.
having these conversations. It is in having the workshops. It is in explaining these things more and enlightening and updating people from the ethers, and sharing with each other.
And sorry to interrupt. I just have a thought. Is it that intimacy is more private now, because that's those feelings and experiences of massaging and with someone are kept so private, But if it was something that was discussed more regularly about how pleasure is
Okay, I see what you mean by private. I think in the Judeo-Christian world, and we have to remind ourselves that the Western world is the smallest part of the world, that we make up a very, 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 very small part of the world. I can't emphasize that enough because we think we are the world and we're not. In the rest of the world, where sex is not viewed as such a taboo topic, often young people are growing up learning these things as they go along, how to pleasure your partner, how to pleasure yourself, etc., etc. So I think it's a very Judeo-Christian approach. All the Abrahamic religions tend to have.
Church boy.
Yeah.
Well, you just took on the title.
Sorry.
I think, But as you
would be
were
proud to
hear that,
know.
as you were
That was
saying
what I
about
said.
mindfulness, if we just remember that mindfulness really just means be here now. In your head and your heart, be here now. Put your attention on what you're doing now. Be here now.
And that's definitely one way to reclaim your power.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're tuned in to While We Were High. This segment here is called Creative High. In Creative High, we focus on musicians, artists, photographers, poets, individuals who are incredibly talented in their own right. And in this episode, episode 1, we are talking to Moon. Now, Moon, I had met, I didn't even know that she was a singer. I didn't know that she was a musician. I met her just in passing one day, and I was struck by her energy. She's just like a bundle of light. In talking with her, realized that she makes jewelry, and she makes the most beautiful jewelry. However, what we're talking to her about today is the fact that she's an incredible musician, singer, songwriter, vocalist, and what we're going to be talking about with her today is her own journey in terms of reclaiming her power, her relationship with cannabis as well, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome, Moon.
Greetings.
You're gonna have to tell me and the listeners. So we're going straight into this. So welcome to While You Were High, or While We Were High. And for the listeners who are just maybe catching on to the theme, which would have been hard to not perceive of, we're talking about reclaiming your feminine power. and thought it perfect to have Moon grace us with her presence for this episode.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about that song. You said it's originally 13 minutes long?
It is definitely 13 minutes long. That was one of the few songs that was written in 2 stages. Most of my music tends to happen all at once. I was just playing the chords and started singing along to it. But I got maybe the first 2 or 3 verses the first time, and then a few days after, while singing it again, more just started coming to me, and so I wrote it down. When I recorded it and looked back at it, it was like over 13 minutes.
It's beautiful though.
Thank you.
So the theme of our first episode here is reclaiming your feminine power. Having gotten to know you a little bit since recently, you're obviously a very strong woman. You exude a certain amount of strength for your tiny size. But have you gone through a moment in your life where you felt like you needed to reclaim your power?
Oh, many of them. I certainly have not always felt my strength the way other people have perceived it. So it's interesting to get feedback and hear people's perceptions of you. While they're not the only reality, and we shouldn't gauge ourselves on other people's perceptions, it is still a reflection of your public self at the very least. So yeah, I have been up and down with depression, anxiety for most of my life. I'd say the past 3-4 years have been the healthiest, but high school was rough, early 20s were rough. So, giving thanks for growth.
Yeah.
Definitely feel stronger now. I can acknowledge that within myself, but it wasn't always like that.
How did you get to this point in your life where you feel more confident with where you're at, mentally, emotionally?
It began with me honoring myself in big and small ways, honoring my truth, whatever that was in a moment. Overcoming the fear of disappointing people in general, family especially, because at the time when I would have started, my family was still my main support system. Late teens and all of that. So to go against, the people who are supposed to be there for you the most, it's a frightening thing sometimes to stand up to them in that way. And the more I did it, the small steps count, it became easier. You still have the emotional side effects to deal with when other people are now receiving these new versions of yourself, but you, or at least I found I felt more confident facing opposition because of the power and the just how much it resonated with me, how good it felt to be honest with myself, to be honest with myself in public, and yeah, that was empowering.
What would be your advice to a young woman who is either struggling as a single mom, which you are, not many people may know, or a young artist? What would be your advice for them?
I think one of the hardest things, and something I'm still working on, is learning to admit when you need help. It can be very daunting to ask for assistance, and many of us are raised to believe that we need to do it all on our own, that the definition of a woman's strength is how much she can handle by herself. And while there is certainly a level of strength and independence, it's not human nature to be alone. And so, without being codependent necessarily, but knowing when you've reached your limits, where your boundaries are, acknowledging those, and especially in terms of motherhood. When it comes to your art, don't do anything that's not passionate. Art shouldn't be mediocre. It's not meant to be nice. It's not meant to just
color in between in the lines.
yeah, you know, if something ends up being nice, then that's fine, but make sure that that's coming from a genuine place. Don't create music, paintings, whatever it is you're doing, don't create it to please somebody else. It should be an expression of your soul. And the artists who always inspired me the most were the most raw, they were the most vulnerable. Vulnerability, I find, is key in creation, so allowing yourself to be that, as frightening as it can be.
Earlier in the episode, Karen Carpenter said that to have it all, you have to decide what you want to sacrifice. Is there anything that you have had to sacrifice along the way?
Definitely, especially balancing motherhood with my career. I sacrificed time to stay home and nurture my kids in a particular way because that was important to me. So that was a decision I made. You know, everybody is entitled to do things differently, but you do have to live with the ramifications of your decisions. So here I am, in some ways, just starting my professional career, and not because I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, but because I took a little bit longer with certain things. I also was not ready to be on stage for a while, so it's okay to have talent and not be ready to use it, because you need to be prepared for even things like this. There was a time somebody asking me questions would give me great anxiety.
You're handling it well.
So, you know, and I don't feel anxious. So even that, this is a testament of growth for me. I wasn't prepared for these things 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, even though I was singing and doing corporate gigs and covers and stuff like that. But putting my own work up there, it's very vulnerable. It's very emotional, very deep and personal to me. So you have to be ready for those things. You're going to sacrifice social events, you're going to sacrifice birthdays, holidays with family. All of those things come with it. So it's figuring out what's important to you, what you're willing to give up, what you're willing to live with. You know, are you going to sit here and feel a year's worth of guilt because you missed somebody's anniversary or whatever? You know? Even your own anniversary. You'll miss important dates to you. Figuring out what your goals are and how far you're willing to go to get them.
And you touched on the fact that you're kind of coming back full circle to being at the start of your professional career as a musician, as a recording artist. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
First time I went into a studio, I was 15, but I wasn't as confident as I am now in terms of saying to a producer that while this sounds good, that's not what I want. Or even though I don't play all of these instruments, I know it's not supposed to go like that. And not feeling like I had the authority to say to a grown man, this is wrong. You know, at 15.
Even when you know better.
And then even at 18 and 19 or whatever, just there's a stigma with vocalists sometimes, and it's a touchy subject among musicians. Some vocalists do come with, you know, certain attitudes, and I understand that some instrumentalists have had bad experiences with vocalists. So being respectful of that, I found I was sometimes making myself small in the studio and not saying the things that should be said, and then hearing something and not being satisfied and not supporting it. Even though nothing was inherently wrong with the product, but it's just not where I want it to go. So right now I am much more prepared to fight for my vision. The album I'm working on is very, very important to me. My music is so sacred. So I'm not going to allow just anybody to be on it. First of all, the energies coming together to put it together are important to me. And speaking up, even if it becomes an uncomfortable conversation, and moving through that, because I know I won't be satisfied any other way.
You touched on that kind of fear at the start of your career of not being willing to speak up. Do you find that more women than men experience that fear in music?
I think I'd have to ask more men. I know I can speak from a vocalist perspective, but I know male vocalists sometimes have felt that inauthority or lack of authority. I'm not sure if it's a word. Also,
We'll make it a word.
Yeah, we make them up all the time. But being able to play guitar has helped. I mean, I was always playing piano, but I didn't perform piano, so a lot of people weren't looking at me as an instrumentalist. Being known as a guitarist helps. I'm perceived differently among other musicians, and there aren't enough female instrumentalists performing. We're around, but a lot of us don't know each other. We're not connected, and it's not that we can't play instruments.
Right.
We just need to see more of us up there. And then I think that it would be more balanced. Maybe if we had more women producers, maybe if we knew more about what was happening behind the scenes, we wouldn't feel as intimidated saying something. But the production world is very largely still a man's world. There's only maybe 1 or 2 female producers I know in Jamaica. And I think we should promote that. Women to learn about it.
So you spoke about promotion just a while ago. So Moon is an amazing jewelry maker. Can I say jewelry maker?
Yeah, the business started out with jewelry. It's evolved a bit beyond that. I consider it more of a spiritual business right now. It's very much an intimate spiritual practice.
And your slogan is "Wear your intentions." Yeah, which I found very, very powerful.
Yeah, I want people to step out of that autopilot mundane thing. Even if you're going to a 9 to 5 and you have to wear a suit or a dress or whatever every day, putting something different into it, being very deliberate and intentional when you get dressed, and when you set yourself for the day. If you have, say, a big meeting today, you need to speak more, maybe wear a throat chest. Wear something that makes you feel good. Wear a different color, because there's color therapy. All of these things carry different energies, and I just want people to think more.
And it's so funny because in the earlier segment with Karen, we spoke about mindfulness. And mindfulness being a very important element to being able to kind of reclaim your power, as it were. You have to be mindful in the moment, mindful with your actions, who you're talking with.
Who you share energy, who you allow into your energy. I actually wrote a post about it yesterday about guarding your words, minding your thoughts, being very purposeful in your actions, because every small thing has a ripple effect. And you may not always see how they're interconnected, but they are.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like the listeners to know, like especially where they can find you? How can they get in contact with you?
Okay, there's a website that connects right now to everything I'm doing: music, jewelry, spirit practice, visual art. It's earthandmoon.net. The business Instagram is earthandmoon_, and for my music/personal, it's osu.emi.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Will you carry us out with a little music?
Sure.
No pressure.
I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe.
So we're back and we're at Bloom Cafe up in the hills on the way to Irish Town at Clement Curve, and this place is beautiful. If you guys haven't yet, you need to follow Bloom Cafe on Instagram and check out the photos on our website as well as on our social media. So I'm here with Kaysian Wilson Burke of Flower Child 1999. Hi, Kaysian.
Hi, how are you?
And Kaysian is our first trailblazer.
Trailblazer.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
You blazing.
Thank you, working hard.
Yeah. So what makes you a trailblazer in my eyes is that you are literally creating your own track. I mean, we're y'all are getting the ambience up here at Bloom. We're a little bit situated off of the road. Like I said, the view is gorgeous, but you're gonna get a rooster in the background, like he's our co-star for the day, and you'll hear sounds throughout this interview. But Kaysian, you're a trailblazer, and in my eyes, you are, because you are creating your own path within fashion, within styling, and we're here to talk about your story. But to get things started, and I had plugged this in the earlier segment, that you've taken. Your story has taken you from your uncle's tailor shop to Beyonce. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna come to Beyonce in a little bit. So y'all listeners need to hold yourself, simmer it. But tell me what your relationship is like with cannabis. Let's just get straight into it because we're on While We Were High. So tell us what your relationship is like with cannabis.
My relationship with cannabis started not what people would call a late bloomer. I started smoking cannabis in 2001. This was after high school, and I found that it helped me to getting into college. It helped me to focus. It helped me to kind of just get into an artistic space as well. And so when I moved to Miami, it was a little bit harder to actually get cannabis, and we used to pay a lot of money for it. Actually, at one time we grounded up a little bit of cannabis and it fell on the carpet and we were trying to pick it out of it. Anyway, long story short, so my relationship started then with cannabis. Went on until I had my first child. When I had my first child, I stopped smoking for about 3 years. Then I had my second child. Why? I found that to keep up with 2 small children, it became a little bit distracting, which is weird. Maybe it's because I wasn't creating as much, but I found that I didn't smoke weed for a while because I'd be in a chill zone and my kids would they want you to get up off the couch and do something and move, and I found that I wasn't able to keep up with the duties as a mom smoking herb. When they got older and I got back into my work, I realized that I needed it. I then started to suffer from depression, and it's not postpartum, but from trauma in my life. And through that depression, I found I was put on medication, and I realized that I did not want to be on medication. So I started to exercise and all of that, but I still had anxiety. So it started again with CBDs. So I was doing CBDs a long time ago, before all of these dispensaries popped up, and like these pens, and it was a drop at first. We would do a tincture. And so I started using it for anxiety, which really, really helped. And now, and then you smoke whatever you can find on the road in Jamaica because the herb is very organic. And now I'm realizing that I'm now experimenting with different strains from these different dispensaries and finding what I like and finding what works for me. So like I found specific strains from specific people that do different things for me. So one of them can put me to sleep. I found a hybrid that actually helps me to sleep or be active. It depends on the vibe you're in. It kind of works with
or the time of day.
Or the time of day. Just where you put your body in that moment. So I quite like that, and that's that's what I've been sticking with so far. I'm still experimenting with other stuff, but for now, that's where I am. A hybrid is what works for me.
So in terms of work, so you mentioned in terms of being able to create, what is your creative process?
My creative process starts from just inspiration from things around me. It could be just driving on the road downtown and seeing like a windshield wiper and just thinking that his hat looks dope with his jacket. Of course, the internet, just having that whole flood of things that you can just see and be inspired by and mash it up. So my creative process comes a lot too from my past experiences, from memories as a child. So like a lot of my pieces are named after things I've experienced. Like my dusters is inspired by my grandmother. My bell bottoms is inspired by my godfather, who was born with deformed legs, so he had to create a bell bottom to cover that. So a lot of my inspirations come from a romantic memory from my childhood, and also inspired by what is happening in fashion and what's modern, because I'm always on the pulse of that, because I just love it.
So since you brought it up in terms of what's happening in fashion, let's talk about Beyonce for a little bit.
Okay, so Beyonce, I was assisting actually the famous Zarina Akers, who was named Stylist of the Year last year in the world, and I was honored enough to be asked to be an assistant stylist on that project,
Which was here locally in Jamaica.
Here in Jamaica for the On the Run tour with her, Jay-Z, and the Twins. I was actually able to help create some stuff for the Twins for the video. So that was a big thing. But I didn't just allow it to stop there. I realized that once I was in that arena, that it was a good opportunity to show them what Jamaican designers had to offer. Not just the stylists, but what designers had to offer. So along with Zia Benjamin, we decided to put a package together called Girl Boss. And we got, just some items like from Bella's nails, her nail polish.
Shout out to Bella.
Shout out to Bella. And we got some stuff from Pieces of Bianco, like her bracelets that are really nicely done. Some stuff from Mama Yashi, and of course the flower child bags. So I gifted her a flower child bag. I gifted her stylist one. I gifted Jay-Z's stylist one, and just kind of wrote those off as like marketing, or whoever might see her in LA or somewhere with it, not expecting that she would have worn it to Milan Fashion Week and actually send me a high-res of the photo. Yeah. So that was a big deal for me.
And that was the first instance
that was
she
the first
used the bag or wore the bag.
Wore the bag.
Yeah.
And just recently, maybe a month ago, she wore the bag again during the summer. So that has been an amazing bit of traction.
Congratulations on that. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
So we've mentioned Beyonce. What are your goals in terms of going forward? Stepping off of Beyonce's is a huge milestone.
I mean, I didn't expect it, so if I'm going to be honest, I really wasn't prepared for the floodgates of orders that I got for the bags, because I was still operating as a small business, to be honest. So when that happened, I should have had a website, which I didn't have. So I tried to package and ship out as much as I could through Jamaica Post for as long as I could, but now I'm trying to structure my business that I can be able to do that. So that's where I am with the whole Beyonce heat, if I can call it that. So I'm still trying to capitalize on that, and I hope that I can push that a little bit further. Zarina Akers actually just asked me to send the hats that I designed for my last collection for an edit. I'm not sure who she's going to put it on yet, but I'm excited to see. Hopefully it ends up in the new Beyonce video.
So excitement. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about you and business, and before we come into the primary topic being reclaiming your power, reclaiming your feminine power, tell me a little bit more about fashion for you in the sense of sustainable fashion, because I know that that's a very big core element of who you are, what your brand is. So tell us a little bit more about sustainable fashion, because that's something that I think not many people know about.
Okay, so we're in the 21st century. The topic of just sustainability has been trending for the longest while, and it's not trending because it's a trend, but it's because it's now necessary for the environment. Like, we cannot survive anymore, and I have children, and I want them to be able to live in a world and my grandchildren to be able to live in a world that's comfortable. So in terms of
Sustainability, one of the biggest issues we're having is our landfills, and everybody's into fast fashion. If you look at Forever 21 and you look at all of these different sites, and you see people just buy so much clothes, and not many people are into thrift shopping. Is a very small percentage of stuff. I highly believe in it because I think you can repurpose something and make it. So we're taking all of these fabrics and we're putting them back into the environment. It's very important that we start using biodegradable materials. For example, even the bags, I try to make sure that it's a natural fiber. We see people using a lot more hemp and stuff like that to make clothing, and I think we need to go into that direction. We need to start repurposing things. We need to start giving things away and trading things as opposed to throwing things out. So it's a big deal for me, to be honest. I've also found a company that I'm about to start working with in India, where they have these bags called I'm Not a Virgin, and they're using old hotel napkins and sheets and turning them into
incredible.
bags.
Yeah.
And it's a huge factory. So I'm now a representative for them to sell those bags to supermarkets, whoever is into that. So that's how I'm making my small footprint on sustainable fashion. I'm trying, and I hope everybody else can find a area or an avenue. It's really not that hard to just
and even the use of how much water is put into creating one t-shirt is, I didn't know that until fairly recently when I was doing some research. And it's scary.
And energy.
Yeah.
And energy.
So everybody can do a little something in some manner.
Yeah. And even the larger fashion houses, they could make a lot less of items, because you notice stuff goes into sale for and then it's taken off the shelf and that's just thrown away.
And then what happens with all of the fabric scraps that come out of just making one dress, for example?
Landfills. So we also have to use those scraps to make other things. We could make rugs and different things. We really just have to start being conscious of it in whatever small way we can, just like we are with energy, with plastic, whatever. Fashion is also a big monster.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit more of your personal story. What has been your story around reclaiming your power? What has been your journey towards your power?
The journey towards my power is that I have two children who I would like to inspire. I was in a situation, or you could call it a relationship, that I kind of lost myself a bit in just being a mom and having different things, and I realized that I really just wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted to grow my brand to the point where I can send out my personal message through using visuals or things that people is an easier sell. So a lot of, if you look at my my Instagram, a lot of my imagery, a lot of my shoots is attached to a message, because I'm a huge advocate for mental illness. I'm a huge activist for gay rights, and so those two things, I kind of use those things to promote my brand as well. So reclaiming my power was a process, but I've thrown myself into work. I've done a lot of work on myself, a lot of work on my healing. I've been through a lot of different traumas, but I've tried to just do the work day by day, doing yoga, exercising, getting off of prescription medication and using more natural things, and it gives you so much more clarity and a more presence of self. And so reclaiming my power has been a journey. I'm still on that journey. So I'll let you guys know later how that is going. But for now, I feel good. I feel good about the message I'm sending out, and I feel good about the responses I get. Just like the little messages I get in my inbox from women that are not that wouldn't necessarily be brave enough to stand up for themselves or talk about their mental things they've gone through. And that's what I do it for. There are the people out there that will judge and say, boy, you know, like, why is she saying all of that, or why, you know, that's so
people
personal.
will always say, because, but I mean, to be fair to them, they probably don't understand, you know, the space that we speak from as well. Because even recently, just talking to a group of parents and me being open about my own personal struggles with mental health and going through a lot of issues in high school, and we're talking about parents with kids in high school, and they themselves don't really fully appreciate how hard it can be, you know. So in terms of your journey and dealing with those traumas, what has been something that has grounded you?
Something that has grounded me is, of course, I want to create a successful business to support the people in my life that matter. Another part of my grounding is helping to actualize and fulfill the purpose of my best friend that was murdered, and to kind of help carry on his legacy and his message.
And that's Dexter.
And that's Dexter Pottinger, of course. And so a lot of that grounding came from him too, and not wanting to fail his purpose, because we really relied on each other for like almost like twin brains in a way when it came to that creative space. So if I'm here and I have breath, I need to make sure that is also happening, and just to leave a mark too in Jamaican fashion and show people that good things can come from Jamaica, you know? Good things can come from Jamaica. So I'm going to keep trying to wave that flag and keep that grounding.
If there's advice that you could give to someone young and over the age of 21, which you better be if you're listening to this podcast, but if there's something that you could give, some bit of advice to someone young and coming up in styling and fashion and in the creative space, what would be your bit of advice for them?
My great bit of advice: solicit the help for the things that is not your strength, because a lot of us creatives were right-brained. Hire somebody left-brained to teach you how to monetize your creativity. Keep your books up to date, to show you how to keep your books up to date. Focus on the financials. Try to make sure that you're not doing any kind of waste, because you tend to when you're creative, you jump from one thing to another. Kind of narrow down your focus to one thing. See what one thing is actually sending out the message you want to send out, or making the money you want to make, and really focus on that and develop that and put your all into that. I got a piece of advice when I was 19 years old from Bridget Sanders, and I was 19. I sat on her veranda and she was like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I do this, that." And she's like, "Kaysian, you do too many things. Like, you need to find one thing, stick to that thing for 5 years, and I promise you, you will see all the returns that you expect." And so that's the advice I would give back to a young person.
So tell the listeners, where can they find you?
Okay, so my Instagram is flowerchild1999. You can email me at flowerchildkaysian@gmail.com, and and Facebook is flowerchild1999 as well. My website will be up soon, and that will be flowerchild1999.
And we will share it on the website too, so don't worry. But we have to plug the Dexter Pottinger Foundation just quickly, because that's launching. Well, by the time you've listened to this, it would have already launched. We're launching
so exciting.
The foundation on his birthday, November 6th. It's been 2 years since his passing, but this marks, in terms of just for context, so I'm involved in the foundation as well.
You are head cook and bottle washer.
But in talking with somebody recently, we had stated that the foundation, it feels almost as if it would have been a natural progression of what his life would have ended up being had he still been with us. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, he would have had a foundation.
It's something he was trying to form a union
Yeah.
before he passed, a union for creatives.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was trying to form a union for creatives so that, because creatives, we tend not to be paid well for intellectual property here, and he was trying to make sure that people could not pit creatives against each other. So basically, if somebody calls you and say, "Oh, I'm going to pay you X," and you tell them your price of what you're worth, they can call the next person and just kind of get it low. And so he was trying to form a union so that we would have a standard.
That's incredible.
In the industry. So this foundation is just a step in the right direction. I know he's smiling about this, and of course it's been launched on his birthday, which is
Hello.
he was so big about his birthday because he's a Scorpio, and they're all about themselves.
Excuse me? What are you trying to...
You're a Scorpio tonight. Didn't remember. I do remember. That's kind of throwing word. But
no matter.
But yeah, so I'm really excited about the Dexter Pottinger Foundation and the fact that we could have come together as friends and have now incorporated and formed this foundation in his honor to kind of carry on the message that a lot of people didn't know about him, which was his heart and his spirit to help others. It was never just all about him. It was, and he did it quietly. It was a quiet power. He never once said what he had done for somebody else, ever. I found out a lot of that after he passed. Of the kindness,
the stories that come to you,
of just the charities he did. So why not continue?
And people
those
who
charities?
he helped without him probably even knowing as well, just observing what he was doing.
Observing how brave he was.
Yeah.
So we want to hand that baton to a young person who might not be as confident, might not be as, what's the word I'm looking for, financially secure to achieve their goals and their dreams, and for us to kind of aid them to do that, which
in talking with someone recently, they had asked me, how did Dexter inspire you after his passing? And let's make this big class. Wow. But in my response to them, to that question about, how Dexter had inspired me after his passing, I said he inspired me before his passing. Because he was a unicorn of sorts. He was able to balance that creative side and that business side so well. And that's one thing also that we want to be able to foster through the foundation, to be able to help other young creatives, young marginalized creatives in particular, to be able to find that balance too. And for other folks who are interested in learning more about the foundation, you can go to DexterPottingerFoundation.com.
Yes, and also a part of the foundation, we will also be focusing on teaching people how to handle grief through different professionals and
mentorship
and mentorship.
Yeah, because we have mentorship opportunities too through the members of the board.
Through the members of the board who are doing amazing things in fashion or in law or in business development. So we have quite a team, and we're all ready to lend a hand and an ear and anything that they would possibly need to actualize their dreams. So it's exciting.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Well, we love you, Dexter, and this has been your first episode listening to While We Were High. Follow us on Instagram and check out the website whilewewerehigh.com. You can look up information on Flower Child 1999. Check out information on Kaysian. She had some great tidbits of info here that I'm going to share in a blog as well. So if you have any other questions, you can slide into the DMs. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.